Hello, folks. I'm Max, the indie anchor, and we're here to review Sunday's episode of Championship Wrestling from Atlanta. And unlike last week, I'm going to try and make this just a hair shorter. So, anyway, it starts off with Uptown Andy Brown doing a promo in the ring, which leads directly into a match with the aerial artist Zenshi. Now, if you're familiar with wrestling, you'll know that Zenshi is generally contracted to MLW, and personally speaking, he's one of my favorite cruiserweights. He's a double South American champion, but just like in MLW, he doesn't come down with the titles, and I'm left to wonder why. I need an explanation to this. They mention it in the commentary, but he never brings those titles with him around his waist or on his shoulders. I think that's a great disservice to him and, their commentary. So if he's a champion, why aren't the belts with him? But anyway, overall, great match. As always, Zenshi has a very, very unique style about him. He pulled off the vast majority of his signature moves in this match, which you really have to see to understand what they are. So I highly, highly recommend watching this match or anything from Zenshi out of MLW. Now, unfortunately, this was a losing effort for him, and it ended via let me check my notes here, package pile driver. So, very vicious move, puts Uptown Andy Brown up, and of course, maybe Zenshi will be back in Atlanta, maybe he won't. Next, we get a promo from Baron Black on Cruz. Overall, good promo. Leading to obviously what's going to be the main event next week. Just like last year, Effie set up for the main event this week. Promo did what it had to do. Very, very passionate. Very believable. Next match is Carl Fredericks versus AC Mack. And if you remember last week, there was a guy who they were just calling Mac. They didn't give me his full name. And I was like, man, I know I should know this guy. But anyway, full name is AC Mack. Now, this was a pretty back-and-forth contest. A couple fake-outs on both of their finishers, which, if you haven't been watching Atlanta long, you're not even going to know what their finishers are. But after about a 10-minute battle, Fredericks comes out the winner via the Manifest Destiny, which is like Edge's DDT, the Execution. Very, very similar. Overall, yet again, great match. I'll give it a 7 out of 10 because it was two varying styles, really clashing just like the previous match. Probably even a little bit better than the Zenshi match before it, but I'm a little partial to Zenshi, so that's kind of a toss-up for me. Next, we get a backstage segment with Heather Monroe, who, after her loss to Reka Tahaka, is, reconsidering her career options, or at least that's the way they made it sound, or she is just going away for a while. She is a constant on the United Wrestling Network, whether it's Hollywood, Atlanta, Memphis, so it's hard to imagine that this will be for long. Maybe she's going to come back, kind of revisit a new gimmick, or maybe, come out with something, or maybe she's just going on injury leave and it's a good excuse to get her off of television. But this isn't the WWE, so there's not a lot of news out of the locker room. We don't really know if she would happen to be injured or anything of that nature. Obviously, we wish her the best. After that, we get a vignette on the problem. Now, what I remember about this vignette is half of it was silence, and it didn't give me any audio until right at the end when they revealed that it was a woman, number one, and there was just a hair of music, but it was very silent, boxing style oriented UFC vignette package. So she's debuting, obviously, but we don't know much about her. And then after that, we get the in-ring call-out promo from Marty Bell, who was the backstage announcer from last week that had an issue with Danny Jordan. So we're getting the blow-off match here for that. She comes down, of course. Danny Jordan comes out with Ziggy Dice, and Ziggy Dice goes to commentary, and the match commences. It's very, very, very short as far as their conversation between one another, because Danny Jordan brings out one of her friends because her hand is injured from their encounter last week, so she can't do the job herself. She brings out Angelica Risk. Not Angelica, Angelica. I had to rewind and listen to that quite a few times to make sure, because the announcers weren't the most clear that they'd ever been. And it was just so short. Like, Marty Bell just killed this girl. There was some slight interference from Danny Jordan, but it didn't amount to anything. Marty Bell lays her out with her variation of the pedigree. They don't really mention what they call it. After that, we get a Cruz promo. Obviously, yet again, going back to the Baron Black, we're going to have some big blow-off here. It's the main event of next week. And that is a knockout and submission only match, and they gave it some sort of, moniker, name. It's kind of like when they say Chicago Street Fight or Philadelphia Street Fight. Really, the only thing that's different between the two is where the fuck it's taking place. But this one was a little bit more solid than, and it wasn't even really a promo. He was just kind of like, real solemn, and it was scaled in black and white, and sitting in a steel chair, and he's like, me, him, knockout, submission, next week. It was almost very caveman-like, but I liked it. So we'll see how that goes. And then directly after that, we get another vignette, but it's a return package for Ray Fury. So very, very well produced return promo pack or video, whatever you want to call it. Really enjoyed it. Got the point across, showed some highlights, did its thing. Absolutely perfect. And also, I want to mention very short, which you got to be careful about the length of vignettes or promo packages or return packages, because, you go too short, it's lackluster. You go too long, it's like, okay, let's get the show on the road, guys. Let's not take up too much airtime. But like I said, did its job. Excellent. So, now we're on to the main event of Alan Angels and Effie. That was, 2 promos from last week and setting it up. Very, very competitive match, and the match was just getting good. And then David Ali comes in, interrupts the match. It's declared a no contest. But what's funny about this is that Alan Angels and Effie double team the piss out of him, just double team after double team after double team, and they cap it all off with 3D. And if you're familiar with wrestling from the 90s, 3D, Dudley Boy's finisher, one of the best tag team moves in the industry. So, and that ended the show. Overall, I'll give this one probably a 7 out of 10 overall as a show. Everything was spot on. Everything was what it needed to be. They didn't take too long to do anything. Nothing was too short. Just good wrestling. Only took up an hour of your life, which is, much better than, per se, Raw, which takes up 3 hours of your life and doesn't give you anywhere near the satisfaction. So that being said, folks, we're going to end this here. And as always, like, share, subscribe. Find me on Twitter at Max@TheIndieAnchor. And peace.